Beyond the veil of the Force, infinite paths stretch before us, choices made and unmade, destinies fulfilled and averted. Today, we explore one such path. What if the culmination of the Sith's grand design, Order 66, had failed? What if the Jedi had discovered Sidious's treachery in time? Today, we witness a galaxy where the inhibitor chips malfunction, where the Chosen One makes a different choice, and where the Clone Wars evolve into something far more terrible. A true civil war between light and darkness. The blaster fire never came. Commander Cody's hand trembled over his holstered DC-17, the blue hologram of Darth Sidious flickering before him on Utapau's windswept plateau.
Execute Order 66.
The shadowed figure commanded, but something was wrong. The neural pathways that should have fired instantly, that should have turned friend into foe without question, stuttered and sparked like a damaged circuit. Behind him, Ghost Company waited for hours that wouldn't come. Above, General Kenobi continued his pursuit of General Grievous, unaware that in another timeline, this would have been his death sentence. Across the galaxy, on the fungal world of Felucia, Commander Bly's helmet display filled with error messages. The inhibitor chip buried deep in his temporal lobe was screaming contradictory commands. Kill the Jedi. Protect the General. Execute the traitor. Defend the Republic. His vision blurred as Aayla Secura turned back toward him, her Leku swaying as she sensed his distress through the Force. Commander, are you all right? The concern in her voice cut through the static in his mind. Around them, the 327th Star Corps stood frozen, weapons half raised, caught between programming and conscience. This was the moment everything changed, not with the thunderous execution of a master plan, but with its catastrophic failure. On Kashyyyk, Master Yoda's eyes snapped open from deep meditation. The darkness he'd sensed for days had finally revealed itself, but something was different. The wave of death he'd foreseen was fractured, incomplete. Through the Force, he felt some Jedi falling, their lights extinguished in sudden betrayal. But others were fighting back. The grand design of the Sith was unraveling. Commander Gree approached, his stride uncertain, his weapon holstered. "General," he said, his voice strained through his helmet's vocabulator. "I've received orders I cannot follow." The failure wasn't random. Deep in the sterile laboratories of Tipoca City, Shaak Ti's fingers flew across the control panel. For weeks, she'd been investigating the inhibitor chips after recovering encrypted data from ARC Trooper 5's final mission. What she discovered had chilled her to the bone. A hidden protocol buried so deep, it would only surface upon direct activation. She'd worked in secret, aided by a handful of Kaminoan scientists who'd grown fearful of what they'd helped create, particularly Nala Se, who'd seen too much death in this war. 2 days ago, anticipating the worst after Yoda's premonitions were shared with select council members, Shaak Ti had prepared an emergency protocol. The moment Order 66 began transmitting, her automated countersignal deployed across Republic military channels, using the same priority frequencies. The signal didn't deactivate the chips, it corrupted them, causing critical errors in roughly 30% of all clone forces. Combined with those clones whose chips had naturally degraded or malfunctioned, nearly half the Grand Army hesitated. It wasn't enough to stop Order 66 entirely, but it was enough to shatter its perfect synchronicity. In the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, the council chamber erupted in controlled chaos. Mace Windu's lightsaber was already ignited, its purple blade casting harsh shadows across the ancient walls. "It's begun," he announced to the assembled masters. "The Chancellor has revealed himself." The intelligence had come from multiple sources. Jedi generals reporting clone betrayals, others reporting clones refusing orders, and most critically, Anakin Skywalker himself, who stood before them now, his face a mask of anguish and confusion. "He wanted me to betray you," Anakin's voice cracked. "He's been manipulating me, manipulating all of us. He's the Sith Lord we've been searching for." The words tumbled out, each one a dagger to his pride. Padme's life, his fears, his ambitions, all of it had been orchestrated. But here, in this altered timeline, the revelation had come moments before his fall rather than after. The premonitions Yoda had shared with the Council, the evidence of the chips, the sudden clone attacks, it all crystallized into clarity. Windu moved with decisive authority. Masters Yoda and Kit Fisto, you're with me. We confront Sidious now, while he believes his plan is succeeding. He turned to Obi-Wan and Anakin. Secure the temple. If this is a coup, he'll send forces here next. The confrontation in the Chancellor's office unfolded differently than Sidious had foreseen. Instead of a desperate Mace Windu and 3 doomed masters, he faced the combined might of the Jedi Order's greatest warriors. Yoda's presence alone changed everything. The ancient Grandmaster's power in the Force created a barrier that even Sidious's lightning couldn't fully penetrate. Kit Fisto's Form 1 mastery, combined with his Natolan ability to sense emotions, allowed him to anticipate and counter Sidious's deceptions, while Windu pressed the attack with Vapad, channeling Sidious's own darkness against him. Your arrogance blinds you, Lord Sidious, Yoda said, his voice carrying 8 centuries of wisdom and sadness. Prepared for your treachery we were. The duel was spectacular and devastating. The Chancellor's office became a maelstrom of Force energy, furniture disintegrating, windows shattering outward into Coruscant's endless sky lanes. Sidious fought with the fury of a cornered beast, his lightsaber work flawless, his command of the dark side absolute. But he had prepared for a different battle, one where he could manipulate Anakin's emotions, where he could divide and conquer. Here, facing unified opposition, his carefully laid plans crumbled. The turning point came when Anakin arrived, having secured the temple's main halls with the 501st Legion members who'd resisted their programming. Master Sim Dralig and the temple guards had the defense well in hand, and Anakin knew where he was truly needed. Racing through Coruscant's skylanes, he reached the Senate just as the battle reached its crescendo. Sidious's yellow eyes gleamed with triumph when the Chosen One entered. Surely now Anakin would fulfill his destiny. Anakin, I told you it would come to this. The Jedi are taking over. But Anakin had seen the truth. In the temple, he'd witnessed clone troopers, his brothers in arms turning on Jedi younglings. He'd felt through the Force as Ki Adi Mundi fell on Megiddo, as Aayla Secura barely escaped death on Felucia when half her troops turned while the others defended her. Reports were flooding in. Some Jedi were dead, others were fighting for their lives, and still, others were being protected by their own clone forces. This wasn't justice. This was genocide. No, Anakin said, his blue lightsaber igniting. You're the traitor. The moment Anakin's blade joined the battle, Sidious knew he had lost this round. With a snarl of rage, he unleashed a force storm so powerful, it blew out every remaining window in the Senate building. In the chaos and blinding light, he vanished, using ancient Sith techniques to mask his presence. Mas Amedda and a contingent of the 501st Legion, those whose chips had functioned properly, were waiting with a shuttle. The Sith Lord escaped into the lower levels of Coruscant, but he left behind a republic in chaos. The immediate aftermath was pandemonium. Without Sidious to maintain order, without the complete execution of Order 66, the galaxy fractured. Some star systems, governed by those loyal to Palpatine's vision of order, declared the Jedi traitors and established martial law. Others, seeing through the deception, rallied to the Jedi's defense. The Clone Wars, which should have ended with the Republic's transformation into the Empire, instead evolved into something far more complex. A 3-way conflict between Jedi loyalists, Imperial forces, and Separatist holdouts who saw opportunity in the chaos. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma worked tirelessly in the Senate, exposing evidence of Palpatine's manipulations. The inhibitor chips became public knowledge, causing a crisis of faith in the Grand Army. Clone troopers who had resisted their programming, like Captain Rex and Commander Wolffe, became symbols of free will triumphing over control. They worked to remove chips from their brothers, creating a glowing force of liberated clones who fought alongside the Jedi. The Jedi Temple became a fortress of light in an increasingly dark galaxy. Anakin, haunted by how close he'd come to falling, threw himself into the defense with desperate determination. Beside him, Ahsoka Tano had returned, her unique position outside the Order allowing her to coordinate with underground networks that the official Jedi couldn't reach. Together, they organized the evacuation of younglings to hidden enclaves, the establishment of secret training grounds, and the formation of what would become known as the Jedi Resistance. But Sidious was far from defeated. From his hidden stronghold on Mustafar, he declared himself the Emperor of the True Republic. Using holonet propaganda and the forces still loyal to him, He painted the Jedi as usurpers who had attempted to assassinate the democratically elected Chancellor. The narrative was compelling enough to draw systems to his cause, especially those who had prospered under his leadership during the Clone Wars. The construction of the Death Star, already begun in secret, accelerated. If he couldn't control the galaxy through manipulation, Sidious would rule through fear. The Geonosians, enslaved completely now, worked themselves to death in the orbital shipyards. Meanwhile, he reached out through the dark side, calling to those touched by darkness. The Inquisitorius was born not from fallen Jedi, but from dark side cults, Night Sisters survivors, and Force-sensitive children kidnapped and corrupted. As months turned to years, the conflict evolved. The Jedi, no longer bound by their traditional restrictions, became military leaders once more. But this brought its own dangers. Anakin, driven by his need to end the war, to protect Padme and their unborn children, began advocating for more aggressive tactics. "We have the power to end this," he argued in heated council sessions. "Every day we hesitate, more innocent people die." Obi-Wan watched his former apprentice with growing concern. The pressure of war, the constant combat, the weight of leadership, it was changing Anakin in ways that peace never could have. The visions of Padme's death still plagued him, and without Sidious to offer false hope, he sought power through other means. Ancient Jedi texts spoke of abilities that bordered on the dark side, techniques abandoned for good reason. The fracture came during the Battle of Jedha. The moon's kyber crystal mines were crucial to both sides. The Jedi needed them for lightsabers, the Empire for their superweapon. During the fierce fighting, Anakin discovered a Sith shrine beneath the ancient city, its dark presence calling to his frustration and fear. In that moment of weakness, with Padme's latest communication speaking of complications in her pregnancy, with the war dragging on endlessly, he listened to the whispers. Sidious had been waiting. Through the Force, across the vast distances of space, he spoke to Anakin's mind, not with promises of saving Padme. That deception was exposed, but with cold truth. "The Jedi will never be strong enough to end this war. They'll let the galaxy burn rather than embrace the power necessary for peace. You know this. You've always known this." When Padme died, not through Sidious's machination, but from complications during childbirth that no Force power could prevent, Anakin's grief transformed into rage. The Jedi had failed him. The Force had failed him. In his pain, he fell, but this time knowingly, willingly, embracing the dark side not as salvation, but as punishment for a galaxy that had taken everything from him. The duel on Jedha between Anakin, now truly Darth Vader, and his former allies was legendary. Mace Windu fell, cut down by the very chosen one he'd once distrusted. Obi-Wan fought his former apprentice with tears streaming down his face, their blades clashing in patterns they'd practiced 1,000 times together. But where their duel on Mustafar in another timeline had been fueled by betrayal and confusion, this was a battle between two men who knew exactly what they were fighting for. Vader won, but he couldn't bring himself to strike the killing blow. Obi-Wan escaped with the infant Luke, while Leia was spirited away by Bail Organa. The Jedi Order, recognizing the war was becoming unwinnable, initiated the Great Exodus. Masters, knights, Padawans, and younglings scattered to the far corners of the galaxy. Some, like Yoda, went into deep hiding. Others, like Ahsoka and Kanan Jarrus, continued fighting from the shadows. The empire that rose from this chaos was different, stronger in some ways, weaker in others. Without the element of surprise, without the complete destruction of the Jedi Order, Sidious ruled through fear rather than absolute control. The Death Star became operational years earlier, but so did the Rebellion, built on the foundation of Jedi resistance cells and military networks. When Luke Skywalker finally confronted his father, he came not as an untrained farm boy, but as a Jedi raised in war, trained by survivors who remembered the old Republic. The final battle wasn't between father and son, but between two visions of what the Force could be, a tool of order through oppression, or a path to peace through balance. In the end, as Star Destroyers burned in the skies above Coruscant and the second Death Star crumbled into cosmic dust, Anakin Skywalker found redemption not in a single moment of sacrifice, but in the gradual realization that his children had succeeded where he had failed. They had found the strength to resist the dark side's easy answers, to fight without falling, to bring hope without becoming tyrants themselves. The Jedi Order that emerged from the ashes was different, humbler, wiser, more connected to the people they served. They had learned that isolation bred vulnerability, that absolute adherence to doctrine could blind them to growing threats. The Republic was restored, but with safeguards against the concentration of power that had allowed Palpatine's rise. As the camera would pull back on this alternate saga, we'd see a galaxy forever changed. The scars of the extended civil war ran deep, but from that suffering came wisdom. The Force was in balance, not through the elimination of one side or the other, but through the acknowledgement that light and dark existed in all beings. And that choice, not destiny, determined one's path. The credits roll on a story of what might have been, a timeline where the Jedi's survival led not to easy victory, but to a longer, harder road to peace. But in the end, that struggle forged a stronger galaxy, one that had faced its demons and emerged scarred, but unbroken. Thunder rumbles as the screen fades to black. If you enjoy this journey into an alternative Star Wars universe where destiny takes unexpected turns and balance means something entirely different, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We explore the infinite possibilities hidden within the galaxy far, far away, asking the questions that reshape everything you thought you knew. The Force has many paths. Come discover them with us.